So before organizing your files and folders, you should first understand how your Mac organizes all the stuff at the top level and how it kind of expects you to organize things down below. Let's start off by going to the top level here in a Finder window, any Finder window. I'm going to choose Go and then Computer, and that will take me all the way up to the top. Let's switch to Column View. Here you'll see your hard drive. You may also see other attached drives, and there's a way to get into your network, but we're just going to focus on what you've got on your hard drive. When I select this, you should see 4 folders here. There's the Applications folder, which contains all of the applications that come with your Mac, but also applications that you've installed. Notice that this is at the top level here. This is because although you can have multiple users, each with their own account, the idea is applications will be available to all users on the Mac. Now, another thing we've got here is System, and this is the macOS operating system. macOS operating system cannot be changed except by system updates, so you can look in these folders, but you can't actually go and alter things. Similar to that's a library, which extends the system in various different ways, adding different parts to it, allowing extensions and all sorts of other things that can be added into the system to work with other apps and other things. You don't need to pay any attention really to what's in System and Library here. Keep in mind this is the System library, the top level library, different than your User folder library. Then you've got the Users folder. The Users folder contains one folder per account plus a shared folder that you can use in cases where you need to share items between accounts. For the most part, you're probably going to see one folder in here with your short user ID. For instance, this is my main account here. That's my short user ID. But I also have a second account here and a third one as well. And that second account is my MacMost account. It's what I use to make tutorials. And it's indeed the account I'm using right now to record this tutorial. So I can't actually see what's in the folders here. You can see a bunch of little red caution signs. I can't go into here because I'm not logged in as this user right now. I am logged in as this user, so I can dig down into the User folder. Now the User folder is where you're going to mainly do all of your stuff. Anything above the User folder in general you don't bother with much. Everything in your User folder is stuff for your account on this computer, and this is where you'll be storing your files and folders for the most part. So here I've got my User folder, which is also called the Home folder, MacMost, and I've got many folders underneath it. I will see folders like this Movies folder here. What's in the Movies folder? Well, it's generally your iMovie library, your TV library for the TV app, and potentially other folders that you created or that other apps that somehow feel that their files belong in the Movies folder that they created. Like here's my screen recording app and it's putting ScreenFlow data in the Movies folder. Music folder likewise is going to contain your music library for your music app. Pictures folder is going to contain your photos library there. And these are general libraries that you're going to see on all Macs in all user account or home folders. In addition, if you're not using iCloud Drive, you'll see a desktop and a documents folder. So the desktop folder is something we're going to look at later on, but the documents folder, that's your primary place where you're going to want to store most of your files. The documents folder is yours kind of to do with what you want. You can create as many folders in here as you want to store and organize your files. But you may not have desktop and documents here in your home folder. If you're using iCloud Drive, which I think most Mac users are now, then you will find those in a different location. It's not part of your main hard drive, but it's iCloud Drive right here. If I select that, I'm going to see various folders here. iCloud Drive is shared by your other devices, the iPhone and iPad, and they may use and create folders for various things here. But in general, you're going to see your desktop folder and your documents folder here in iCloud Drive. And if you're using iCloud Drive, this is where you should actually go to organize things. If you're using iCloud Drive, then in fact the link to the Documents folder here will actually go to the same location as iCloud Drive Documents. So the Documents folder is where you want to really concentrate on putting all of your things. Create as many folders as you want, organize as you like, have folders that have folders that have folders, and place things in your Documents folder. You're not forced to use it. You could create another folder in your home folder. You could organize them, say, in the desktop if you wanted to. But in general, the best practice is to store all of your files that you create in the Documents folder. Now the desktop is a special folder, whether it's part of iCloud Drive or not. In this case, for this example, it is not part of iCloud Drive, but it would work the same if it was. Anything you see in here will also be reflected on the actual desktop. So let's go and create a new file. I'm going to run the app TextEdit. I'm going to create a new document and I'm going to just write something and then save it. Where am I going to save it? Well, I'm going to save it to the desktop. I can use the sidebar there to quickly get to it. So I'm just going to call this test and save. Now notice it appears here on the desktop. It also appears here. So the desktop folder, anytime I look at it in the Finder, is showing me the contents of what's there. If I were to create a new Finder window and I would also go to desktop, you would not be surprised to find that I'm just looking at the same place in two different windows. Well, this is the same thing here. There's another window which is the desktop itself, and that's where you see the same files that you'll see here. So it's a special folder that conveniently puts items here on the desktop. So notice if I close all my Finder windows and I want to reopen this file here, I can just double click it right there from the desktop. Very quick, convenient access. However, the downside is that you start adding more files to your desktop and it gets very cluttered. So for many people it's just a place to store one or two very frequently accessed files. Others, like myself, like to put almost nothing there. Sometimes I will put a file there that's temporary. Like I'll create this file here. It's for a new project. I haven't yet in the Finder created a folder here in Documents to contain this new project. So what I'll do is instead of letting that slow me down, I will save it to the desktop. And then at a good stopping point, I'll have that file there and I will move it into a folder in the Documents folder or create a new folder for it. So it's a good temporary place to put something until you're able to organize. You can also do some other things with the desktop. For instance, if you go to Finder, Settings, under General, it'll say Show these items on the desktop. And you can have your hard drives shown. You may have that by default. And that's another way to get to that computer level that we saw before. You can also have external disks shown. If you've got any optical drives, you can have those shown there as well as any connected network drives. So you can decide whether or not you want to see that. In addition, if you've got a bunch of files on the desktop, there are ways to organize them. So for instance, let's say I have a bunch of different files on my desktop. I can make sure that the desktop is selected. If you have another Finder window selected, just click on the desktop to make sure that that is what the focus is on. Then you can go to View and you can sort by something and you can see it rearranges them like that. You also have the options to sort by other ways. You can use Clean Up, which will clean up all the files there, getting them to snap to positions on the grid. You can also go and clean up by and it will resort them like that. And then you can use something called stacks. So you select View, use stacks, and now similar documents like these here will combine into one kind of folder there on the desktop. It's not a real folder. Everything is still just there on the desktop. But on the desktop, these three things are combined into one icon and they'll expand or shrink when you click that group. So if in the Finder I go back to the desktop here, I could see all the files. See there's 6 of them. I only see 4 here because there's 3 compressed into one like that. So stacks is a useful way to organize your desktop if you have a lot of files there and you don't want to clean it up.